Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. It has been a while. Actually, it's been one day shy of 3 weeks since I've been out here to inspect the hives, and that's mainly because of a work-related trip that came up that I had to go on. So, first and foremost, it's July 4th. Happy Independence Day, America. It is about 10 o'clock in the morning. Temperature's about 86 degrees. Humidity's in the 60% range. It definitely feels like it, and like I said, it's been 3 weeks since I inspected the hives, which is 2 weeks more than I have been. So I'm over here at hive number 1, which you can see has a honey super on. Things have been running a little behind schedule this year. So last year, if you look back at that honey harvest video, I pulled the supers about mid-June, which is when the trip came up this year. Good timing because things have been running a little behind, like I said. So the honey super has been on this whole time, 3 additional weeks more so than last year, but as we know, or maybe you don't know, things change year to year depending on weather and everything. So we have had a lot of rain. I think the last 2 to 3 months we've had about 60 something inches, which is a lot for us here. However, it has been dry and hot lately over the last few weeks, which is good because that'll help cure the honey, and of course it gives the bees more time to cap any uncapped honey in the super. So I'm going to take a look at the super first to see if that's ready to be harvested, and then get down into the brood box. So hive number 1, if I remember correctly, for the weeks leading up to June 12th, which was the last time I inspected them, practically every week they produced a queen cell. And the last inspection that I conducted, I moved one frame from this hive down into the second nuke, which is hive number 5, to get that queen right, and it looks, or to make a split really, and that looks like it's doing well. That'll be a separate video, check that out. So removed the queen, or removed a frame with a queen cell from this hive. The queen in this hive was marked, so using this thing here, the one-handed queen catcher, I've made plenty of posts and videos about that, fantastic tool. So when I get down into the brood box, obviously checking for signs that they're queen right with eggs and everything, but more preferably I want to find the marked queen. That's a clear indication that they have not swarmed. On the other hand, if I find a queen and she's not marked, now that I have marked queens, right, that will let me know that they did swarm, which is not exactly what you want when you have a honey super on, because the bees load up with honey, and from what the experts say, they take a significant amount with them. So if you're trying to harvest honey, you definitely don't want your colony to swarm. So enough of me yapping, let's get into hive number 1 and see what they're up to. And if you're wondering why that didn't sound like it had a lot of propolis, or why it was sealed down, I was out here yesterday to clean up the bee yard. Used the weed eater to beat down a lot of overgrowth here, and I just took a peek. So if you're wondering why that sounded like it wasn't sealed that well, that's why. I just took a peek. Now you can tell this is sealed because I didn't pop the inner cover off at all. And what have I been doing? I've been setting this aside so I can put it on top of the super. And let's see, trying to remain optimistic. They did have some pretty nice capped honey before I left in the center, and starting to think, let's not get too judgmental based off one frame. I'm starting to think they may have started to uncap it to use it as a food source, because that's something else I didn't mention. The nectar basically stopped flowing maybe 1 to 2 weeks ago. However, some beekeepers in the county did say they had plenty of supers. My one of the bee club members runs 21 hives in his backyard, and he said about half of them were still uncapped, so he was going to give them a few more weeks to cure it. And it looks like it looks like that's what I'll be doing as well. I'll be giving them a few more weeks to cure some honey. Just because, like, if you look at this one, there's nectar. This entire frame is nectar, however, they've just capped a little patch there. So, like I was saying in the intro, things change year to year, and it looks like that's kind of the case this year as well. They just need more time. And the other thing that I'm noticing is there doesn't seem to be as many bees as I would like to see in the super. So, not to put the cart in front of the horse, but kind of curious to see what the colony looks like at this point. Had really high hopes for this year, had some big plans, but beekeeping is rather unpredictable, so you can have whatever plans you want. The bees, as I tend to say, are gonna do what they want to do. It still has some pretty nice weight to it. They just need to start capping it, really. Alright. Let's smoke them down, just so I don't have a repeat from last time, which the weather was just not good. It was overcast. We had a lot of rain, so when I came out to inspect the hives, most of the bees were in the hive. And if you look back at that clip on Instagram or the video on YouTube, you'll see just a ton of bees hitting my veil. And one of them managed to get in, which never makes me feel great. And then one got stuck in my eyelash. I didn't get stung at all, but I definitely left the bee mark a little bit and managed to get that bee off, or yeah, free from my eyelash, because that would not have been fun. Alright, first frame, typical, nothing. That was a new frame that I added. Same thing with this frame. Hopefully the queen makes nice work of that eventually. I have some equipment coming in from Man Lake. Plan on making a whole bunch of splits this year. Food frame. Obviously, a bunch of honey on that side. Another very nice food frame. However, the concern is, if you can see this, hopefully it picks it up on camera, you got capped honey up here. Typically where some brood would be, there's a whole bunch of pollen. So, again, not trying to get ahead of myself, but hopefully they didn't swarm and been queenless for the last 2 weeks or so and started to become honey or pollen bound. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th frame. Should start seeing some brood. Okay. So we have brood. Oh, there's the marked. Yeah. Okay. So there's the marked queen right there. Let's cage her real quick. Okay. So she's caged. Let me grab my flashlight. I mean, obviously they have a queen, but I just want to kind of see, since I found her on this frame, if she's laying any eggs. Alright, well I guess it doesn't really matter. They have a queen. She looks kind of small though. That's That's the concern. And usually queens will start to slim down when they're trying to swarm. Hopefully you can see her in there. Maybe she'll turn around. There you go. You should see the dot. Let's keep her right there. So now at this point, I can move a little quicker through the rest of the colony. And if I see any swarm cells, I can either tear them down since they're queen right, or I can just make a note of what frame they're on. And if I need a queen cell in another colony, I have some options. So again, found the queen, but just curious to see. Okay, so that'll develop into some nice brood on that side. Yeah, same thing on this side. They just have a funky brood pattern, or brood area, so that's brood and that's all food there, instead of the typical rainbow effect. Alright, so at this point, really just checking for any sort of queen cell, swarm cell, anything like that. So again, you can move a little quicker. Speaking of, check that out. They have made queen cells every time I get in this hive. They keep making supersedure cells. So they're obviously not happy with what she's doing. And at this point I'm really kind of conflicted whether or not to let that go or tear it down. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to set that frame aside because this is the first colony and I have a few more to inspect. So I'm going to set that aside, like actually on the outside of the frame. That's a nice brood pattern. I'm assuming the center has eggs or they've recently hatched out. Now they have eggs. Yeah, that's a solid brood frame there. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that frame outside to remind me to grab it later in case one of the other colonies needs a queen. And if they don't need a queen, that's where things get a little complicated for me. Oh yeah, they are not happy with this. Oh yeah, you know what? I could make a split. Yeah, they're just not happy with this plan. Just check that out. Here's another one. So I might... That's a tough one because they got a super on, you know? Set this aside as well. I'm going to leave both of those. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to do because of the super. That's what's kind of puzzling me. So I have the parent queen. I can make a split. Oh man, I'm gonna make a choice here. They got 2 queen cells. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna leave those out for now. Let's see. Put the newer frames on the outside. I have brood. Let's see. I think I'm just gonna hang the queen cell or the queen clip. Yeah, hopefully this works. I've never done this before, so I'm just gonna hang the queen clip, kind of like a queen cage. I mean, it is a cage. I'm just gonna hang this in the middle. I don't know if that's gonna work or not. I don't think that's gonna work. I'm gonna set the super on it. I guess I can do this. I'm just gonna set it down in the colony. Alright, so I'm going to set the queen clip down there. I have the 2 frames outside that have queen cells. I'm going to put this, well, I'm going to put the super back on. Alright, I'm going to get into the rest of the colony so I can come back, well, so I can see what they look like, and then I'll come back and make a decision on this. But yeah, I have number 1, queen right, and I have 2 frames with very developed queen cells on them. So, decision time. I do have some extra equipment so I can make a split. The dilemma is because hive number 1 has a super on there, and I don't want to move half of the bees, essentially, to make a split, which takes away from their foraging force, possibly. So that's kind of the it's kind of the dilemma. So either way, I'm going to turn the camera off for now, get into the rest of the colonies, inspect them, and then come back to hive number 1 and make a decision then. All right, tune in a little bit, and I'll figure out what I want to do with this colony.